One of the reasons people haven't picked up ES6 just yet is to say, well, it doesn't work in all the browsers. And that is not true for the latest browsers, but it is true if you have to support a browser that is older than, I don't know, a year or two old, where they just don't know about these ES6 things. However, that should not stop you from using ES6 today because it is possible with Babel and polyfilling to get probably about 99% of all ES6 working across all the browsers that you need to support. So, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to explain to you what Babel is, how we can set it up. In the next video, I'm going to talk all about using polyfills to polyfill the new methods that we haven't used. So, Babel, what is it? I've been talking about it in a couple of videos and I've referenced it, but I haven't actually gone straight ahead and say what it is. Essentially, it's a JavaScript compiler. And what that means is you put JavaScript in and you get ES5 or browser compliant ES5 out. And it initially started with just ES6 stuff. However, it's really expanded to future JavaScript stuff, experimental JavaScript stuff. A lot of React stuff is also in it. So let's take a quick look at how it works, and then we'll step back. I'm just going to go to babeljs.io, and I'm going to go to try it out. And this is really nice because if you ever trying to understand how something works, you can just go to the Babel.js REPL right here and try it out. So right here, I've got this function called logPet, and it takes in a pet name and it takes in a pet type. However, I've got a couple ES6 things going on here. I've got this pet type equals dog, where I've set that as a default. And then I'm also using template strings here. Now that works great, but what if everyone isn't using latest Chrome? What Babel will do is compile it down to what the ES5 equivalent is, and it does a fantastic job at doing that. Never mind what this code actually looks like, because you're just concerned with how this code looks like. But let's take a look. Well, right here, pet type is equal to dog. Here it does a quick check if someone has passed a second argument, and if not, they set pet type to be equal to dog. Same thing goes for when I am doing concatenation here. This is template strings, but this kicks out actual annoying concatenation. So that's Babel, and you use it pretty much in every single project that you need ES6 to work with, and it sort of goes hand in hand with a Webpack or a System.js. So I've already shown you how to use Babel with Webpack. Now, you only need Webpack or System or Browserify if you are using modules. If you're using absolutely everything else, there's no need for a Webpack or a Browserify or anything like that. If you simply just want to write ES6 code and get it to compile down without having to use modules, then you don't need a Webpack or anything like that. You can have a much simpler setup. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. Let's take a look. Here we are in our ES6 tooling, and let's make a directory called Babel, and let's move into Babel. Now I need to set up an npm package, so we're going to say npm init, and now we have a package.json file. And now we need to install just two things, actually. We need to npm install babel-cli. What that will do is it'll allow us to run Babel via the command line, or we're actually going to do it via an npm script. And then we also need what's called a preset, because Babel has these plugins. If we go to plugins here, and every single possible feature that JavaScript has a plugin. So they sort of chunked it out into different plugins. So arrow functions and block scoping and classes and for of and destructuring and spread and every single possible feature of ES6 is available right here. But then it also supports modules, and it also supports some experimental like stuff that might be added to the language, but we aren't quite sure just yet. It supports some minification stuff. It supports a whole bunch of React stuff, and there's all kinds of stuff. And probably you don't need all of this. You just need all of the ES6 stuff. So rather than you having to download every single plugin that you need here, they also have this thing called presets. Now, a preset is simply just a collection of plugins. So we don't need to install every single ES6 plugin. We just need to install one ES 2015 preset. So that's what we'll do. We'll say babel-preset-ES 2015. And then we're going to save both of those to our package.json. Once it's installed, you can actually check your package.json, and you should see that we have Babel CLI and Babel preset installed. Now that we have that, we have this command called Babel, and you won't be able to run it via the command line unless you have installed that globally, but we can run it via an npm script. So that's actually what we're going to go ahead and do is we go into our scripts here. You can delete the test one, and we'll just call that script called Babel. And the actual command that we run is called Babel app.js. So we're going to run the Babel command against app.js, and we are going to watch for changes, and we are going to save the output out-file to a file called app-compiled.js. Now, a couple things we need here. First of all, we need an app.js. So let's go into our Babel and create a file called app.js. And let's just say const age equals 100, const people equals Wes and Kate, and then let's just say const full names equals people.map name. We'll do an arrow function, and then we'll return the actual name plus boss on the end. So what do we use? We use const, we used arrow function here, we use implicit return, we used a whole bunch of different ES6 features here. And ideally, what should happen if we take that and try it out in the Babel editor, it should compile that down to using var. It should properly scope the vars if I'm inside of any blocks, and it should make it a proper function and use concatenation. So how can we do that here? Well, let's go over to our package.json. Now we have the script here. If we were to run it, it wouldn't work just yet, and I'll show you why. npm run Babel. If we open up our actual app-compiled right here, it kicks out our JavaScript file, but like none of it has changed at all because Babel by default simply just is a file mover. It doesn't actually do anything because we haven't told it which plugins or which collections of plugins, which is a preset, to use. Now, to tell it, we could have done it on the command line here, or better is to have what's called a .babelrc file. And a babelrc file is very similar to an ESLint file where it will check that file for your specific settings. Now, I actually don't like to use a .babelrc file in some of my tutorials because it's a dot file and it always gets lost. People that have hidden files don't copy it over. So one little thing you can do is you can actually put your babelrc file inside of package.json, which is really cool. So we can just go into our package.json, go to the bottom here, and add a Babel. Now we are writing JSON here. Make sure you use double quotes. Our Babel file is going to be a couple things. The preset is going to, or which presets, sorry, are we using? Well, we are using ES 2015, and that's it. If you had multiple presets, like you might also be doing React, then you would do React like that. However, we just have one. Now, that is our entire Babel config. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that you could possibly put in there, and to find out more about that, you go to usage, CLI, or go to usage babelrc, and it's going to tell you information that can possibly go into it. And you can check it all out via the options on here. So file name, preset, see that's the one we're using. Plugins, if you want to add an additional plugin there, highlight code, ignore, etc., all kinds of fun stuff that goes in there. But we really just need the presets here. So I think we should be able to now run, quit it, and then npm run Babel, and it should kick out an app-compiled. If I open up my compiled in a new tab here, there we go. Look, it's telling me that we use var here. We have full names. It's using a proper functions using concatenation. And now anytime that I write any sort of ES6 in here for person of people, const, console log, person, give that a save. It will rerun here. And look at this. It does all kinds of crazy stuff. It uses our for, it uses the symbol iterator. It does all of the sort of hard work behind the scenes to get this to actually work, where we just have to write the nice clean ES6. And it works extremely well. Companies like Facebook are using this to compile their entire code base. So if it's good enough for them, it's probably also good enough for you. One other thing is if you would like to add additional plugins, because our package.json Babel preset is only ES 2015, but like let's say you're like interested in trying some of the other plugins out. So one that I am a big fan of under experimental is this object rest spread. So you remember you learned about rest and spread dot dot dot, and I said, okay, this only works for arrays. It can also work for objects, but it's not in the language yet. It hasn't totally done. So what we need to do is install this right here. npm install Babel plugin transform object rest spread. We take that to our command line. Make sure that you save that dependency. And now that we've installed this right here, we can go to our package.json, and instead of also using presets, we can use plugins, which is going to be an array in itself. And the plugin that we are using is the transform object spread. So I should be able to now go into my app.js and use some of their rest properties or their spread properties. Paste it in here. Let me paste it at the top so we can see it. Give it a save. Now I need to rerun it. npm run Babel. And here we go. You see that they put in some helper functions, often object without properties. And this is our actual, it looks a little bit funky sometimes, but they know what they're doing, and the code actually turns out working really nicely.